Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Dixon. I'm here to talk to you about something that I created that I think can be helpful, that has been helpful for myself as well as could be helpful for other people. So I wanted to put this out there to the world and share it with you. And so the idea that I came up with is has to do with self-care, which I know is a word that can often be thrown around in different ways. I think sometimes the way that self-care is perceived is that it means that you have to go and spend a lot of money on yourself, or that it means face masks and bubble baths, which it certainly can. It can mean those things for certain people, and that's totally fine. The whole idea is that really challenging that is the kind of strict, concrete definition of it, that we expand on that a little bit more, in that self-care can look like a whole lot of other things. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about what I mean by that, and sort of encouraging this expansion of looking at self-care and how we practice that for ourselves, and kind of where we're able to, whenever possible, to fit more of that in, because I know that if you're like me, often there is this kind of never-ending to-do list, and sort of these cards coming out of an idea that, knowing kind of often, or one day in particular, that there was something that I needed and wanted to do for myself, but really struggling with what that was going to be, what that needed to be, where was my energy going to be best spent. And so again, kind of having this idea and manifesting them into these cards. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about kind of what you'll get if you choose to buy these cards. So there are 42 self-care cards, and I'll talk more about the structure of the cards as we move forward in this presentation. So they're all color coded, and again, I'll talk about what the color coding means, how to use them essentially, or how they can be used. You can be pretty flexible with what they have to offer in terms of how they help support us, and pretty much use them kind of in whatever way you want. That can look like just picking a random card, or if you have a sense of what it is maybe that you do need, but aren't exactly sure what to do with that, that this can give some helpful kind of more structured ideas around that. And I'll talk more about what I mean by that. So within that deck of 42 cards, so there's 42 cards with activities, and then also two kind of loose instruction cards. So within the deck, there are seven categories, and for each category there are 6 activities for each category. So then within that, in those different 6 activities, there are 3 different time frames for each. So for example, a time frame of 10 to 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, and 30 to 60 plus minutes. So also helping to narrow our scope a little bit further, again, and knowing that maybe we want to do something for ourselves, we know we have a certain amount of time to work with, and what can that look like, right? So I'm going to go through and talk a little bit about the different headings. So we have, again, the 7 different categories. So the first one is the category of organization. This is the first one I'm going to talk about. And one of the activities that I created under that heading is to declutter something. And for the purpose of this presentation, I'll read the 10 to 20 minute activity and then go from there. So the 10 to 20 minute activity for the declutter something is to look around your space and notice any items that need to be returned to their homes. So that idea that sometimes when our environment feels chaotic, we can also feel chaotic, increasing that stress. So, the embracing the fact that a little bit can sometimes go a long way. The next one is the mindfulness category, and the activity that I'm going to focus on is breathing. So we have breathing, and for 10 to 20 minutes, notice your breathing going in and out of your body. Focus on making your exhalations longer than your inhalations. When done, pay attention to how you feel and note any changes. Again, this might sound fairly simplistic, but sometimes we are really, really not good at paying attention to kind of where our breath is and how we're breathing. And there actually is research to support both physiologically that when we actively focus on making our exhalations longer than our inhalations, meaning, okay, so we breathe in for a count of 5, we want to push maybe to breathe out for a count of 7 or 8, that exhalation actually taps off the kind of calming center of our brain, or the parasympathetic nervous system, as it's called in more proper terminology. But that idea that we're trying to like really force this calming physiological response, even if we're not necessarily like thinking that we're feeling very calm or relaxed, that we can try and push it physiologically to shift things a little bit. So the next card is under the emotional category, and this is the activity is regulating. And for 10 to 20 minutes, or if we have 10 to 20 minutes, we're going to focus on how we're feeling. We're going to list happy, sad, mad, and fearful, and then write things down also that are helpful when we're feeling those feelings. So this way of trying to establish a continued kind of plan around what do we do when we feel this way, because sometimes we really are not as in tune with that as we need or would like to be. So just again, giving kind of time and space to the idea of that. Next, we have the social category, and the activity there is with boundaries, something I feel like we could all do a little bit better with sometimes. And boundaries absolutely fall under self-care. Like I mentioned before, it doesn't necessarily just have to be about masks and bubble bath. Sometimes just saying no, the act of being able to work on saying no is self-care in and of itself. So the activity on this card for 10 to 20 minutes is what relationships need more boundaries. What would this look like? What would you need to happen to maintain these more effectively? So, again, it's this consistent work that we're doing when we potentially pull a card from the deck around these different skills, So even if we've pulled this card before around boundaries and we've answered this question and done maybe some writing or jotting some stuff down to acknowledge this, it doesn't mean that work is necessarily done. That we can always kind of revisit the different headings or skills that are focused on the cards. Next, we have spiritual. We have acts of service as the activity, and the 10 to 20 minute activity is check your living space for items you no longer use and fill a bag with items to donate. Take them somewhere and donate them. So this idea of like kind of the sense of completion of being able to fill a small bag or fill a large bag with items that we no longer need and donating them to a charity, dropping them off in one of a clothing box if there's one near you, donating them to a local organization or church. So next is the physical category, and we have under that the activity is nutrition. And for 10 to 20 minutes, we're going to assess our eating habits. How do we think we're doing? How would you like to improve? Come up with a plan for one thing you would like to see improved for you nutritionally, and so this doesn't mean, again, that there has to be this vast overhaul of our diet like what our diet looks like or what our food intake looks like, but just what do we need to, like, what's one small change that we can try and engage in and focus on for ourselves. So it might be just eating more fruits and vegetables, pretty simple. Drinking more water, again, kind of doesn't have to be such a huge undertaking. I get it though, like obviously even within that, sometimes shifting those habits, as simple as they may feel when we talk about them, can also be hard, but it's just, again, giving that intention to it, which is something. And then in and of itself can also help to potentially elicit small change. And as we know, some of those kind of smaller changes as they go along result in larger changes along the way. The final one is sensory, and I chose the activity of hearing. And so we're going to talk about the 10 to 20 minute one there is listen to something that brings you joy. Pay attention to the response your mind and body have to the experience. What types of things make you happy when you listen to them? And so, like I mentioned, so that's all of the different categories with 6 of the different activities with one of the 6 activities underneath. And like I mentioned, for each of the activities, then there is a breakdown of the time frames as well, giving hopefully more of an idea or options as to what it is that we need or could possibly do for ourselves. So I think also kind of coming back to the caveat that I think I mentioned earlier is that self-care doesn't look like the same thing for everybody. Again, and that's okay. That, you know, the idea also behind these cards is that, okay, maybe we know we want to do something based on like under the kind of heading of mindfulness, but aren't really sure what to do with that. And so we can, you know, from the deck of cards, take out all the ones that are mindful, all of the purple ones, and then pick from those, you know, or read them over, read all of the mindfulness ones over and pick one that resonates, you know, or we could take the whole deck and just randomly pick. Maybe we have no idea what we want, or we want to like just be really flexible and open and like see what happens and pick a card, you know. And so again, that there's a lot of different ways that these can be utilized to work for our, you know, to work to our advantage. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation today. Obviously, if you're interested in purchasing the cards, they are, you can find them on my websites, and as well as they may end up being posted on Etsy. I'm not sure as of the releasing of this video if the Etsy shop will be up yet, but you can get them on my website. They're $15 for the set of 42 cards. If you have any questions, you know, feel free to email me. You can find my email also located on my website. Thanks so much.